So the Grayzone managed to get their hands on some shocking, newly leaked audio from a private AIPAC meeting. Now, AIPAC, if you've been living under a rock, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, and is a pro-Israel lobbying group. Now, what this audio shows is a group of AIPAC members, including the leader of AIPAC, boasting how they have special access to Trump's national security officials, including the now head of the CIA. Listen to this.
Well, I was talking about the people who will get appointed into some of these jobs. Look at the top level. You talk about Marco Rubio and Stefanik, and Michael Waltz. Those three people have something in common. They all serve in Congress. They all have relationships with key AIPAC leaders from their communities. So the lines of communication are good. Should there be something questionable or curious that we need access on the conversation to? You never know. One of the first candidates I ever met with as an AIPAC professional when my job was to meet candidates for Congress was a guy named John Ratcliffe. He was challenging a longtime incumbent member of Congress in Dallas. This guy looks like he could win the race. And we go talk to him. He had a good understanding of the issues. And a couple of weeks ago, he took the oath as the CIA director for crying out loud. I think he was the guy that they had a chance to speak to. So there are a lot, I don't want to call them lifelines, but there are lifelines.
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 So that's a nice way of saying, yeah, we have basically roots, connections into the administration. They call them lifelines. That's a new word. I haven't heard that before. We have lifelines into these people, and we basically get to control them.
Oh, question. Are those people registered as foreign agents then? Given that they have this now conflict?
No, because of course they can dance around that by saying that they're American, and that's sort of the caveat here in all of this, right? Laughing about their influence over our CIA director and members of the national security team. Max Blumenthal is the journalist from the Grayzone that broke the story, got his hands on this leaked audio, and Max joins us now. Max, it's been a long time. Great to have you back on the show, and stunning story here, Max. Great to see you.
Thanks. Great to see you both.
So I was struck by the sort of condescension of this guy, Elliot Brandt, sort of laughing. I mean, he's in front of a whole audience of AIPAC supporters, of course, and he's sort of laughing over AIPAC's influence over our CIA director, almost like we guided this guy. We sort of took this little baby bird out of a nest. We sort of guided him, and now he's our guy at the CIA. I mean, am I reading that wrong? How did you read it?
Yeah, exactly. Anybody who comes from Congress into a national security position will have been groomed and vetted and briefed by AIPAC. That's the message he was sending. And that's why they prefer people to come out of Congress. Marco Rubio, Elise Stefanik was going to be the UN ambassador. This lady's not even Jewish. She's Catholic, and she sounds like a settler from the West Bank. They pulled her nomination because they needed to shore up their majority in the House. Then you've got Mike Waltz. This is directly connected to Signalgate, or at least indirectly, because we're at war. The United States is at war with the Yemen on behalf of Israel to provide freedom of navigation for Israeli shipping. And Mike Waltz organizes this signal group and was clearly the one on board with it. He's the one, as I understand it, inside the Trump administration pushing for war with Iran. And here you have the CEO of AIPAC who says that Mike Waltz is one of their guys. And it's not just the CEO, it's not just a top-down operation guiding these national security officials and checking in. It's the local legislative director in their district, what Representative Thomas Massey was referring to when he said everyone in Congress has an AIPAC person. And he was attacked for that, called a conspiracy theorist. But here's the AIPAC CEO, in his own words, in an unguarded setting where he thought that there were no recordings taking place, saying exactly what Thomas Massey said, that everyone in Congress is pretty much controlled by a foreign influence operation, which is unregistered.
Yeah.
Are there any competing interests? Any country that has anywhere near this amount of influence on American policy?
Well, like the Israel lobby likes to say Qatar does, and they pay a lot of think tanks on K Street and try to inject a lot of money in the U.S. political system, but it doesn't really, it doesn't compete. And everything Qatar does is governed by FARA. The think tanks will report these donations. AIPAC gets around all of this by saying we are just a Jewish American organization advancing pro-Israel interests, but these are Americans. But the fact is, AIPAC was once known as the American Zionist Committee. It was founded by someone named Isaiah Kennan, who was himself an Israeli agent in the United States, acting on behalf of a foreign power. And there was a massive battle in 1964 on registering his committee, and the United States government lost. And that was the end of it. It's sort of like how Israel's allowed to have nuclear weapons, over 250 warheads, and it's completely secret, and the IAEA doesn't even inspect their facility at Dimona. So there's this entire kind of zone of exception around everything that Israel does in the United States. And I think that if the American public knew what was really taking place, not only in these meetings, but in Congress and in the Pentagon, we had a Pentagon official in this audio who sounded like an Israel lobbyist, there would be massive espionage investigations taking place. Because as we know through the Larry Franklin scandal in 2004, 2005, AIPAC was an avenue for spiriting classified information out of the Pentagon about Iran and sending it to Israeli intelligence. And there's no reason they're not doing this today.
Clearly. Someone in our chat, John B, says, Redacted is pushing this on purpose. Redacted is owned.
By who?
Yeah, we're literally doing a story about it.
What is the corporate interest that wants us to break down Israeli influence? I can't think of who that might be.
Who are we owned by? I'd love to know that. It's hilarious. I want to ask you about this, but I was just laughing my ass off seeing that comment here a second ago. But anyway, another moment here, Max, was this leaked audio. In this leaked audio is an AIPAC panelist that you guys were unable to identify. Maybe you've now identified this person, but I don't think, I just checked a few minutes ago, I don't think you did. But anyway, this person, you don't know who it is. He's speaking on stage at this AIPAC conference. He says his greatest concern is social media and that, quote, we're losing the war of ideas. Listen.
Imagine 5 years from now, a congressional staffer types into AI, Claude, GPT, at that point, it'd be like GPT-14, whatever, right? Says, is supporting Israel bad for American national security? The answer that they get back is going to be informed by the information that's on the internet today. Which is why punching back in the information sphere becomes so important. I would argue exactly the wrong impulse. Because when you disengage, you leave an open playing field for precisely that sort of information that's going to inform national security decisions 5 years from now.
Yeah, so if you disengage, you've got to be on the playing field talking about these things. Max, everyone knows, even mentally handicapped people know that supporting Israel militarily hurts America, makes us more vulnerable. It has for decades. As John Mearsheimer writes in his great book, The Israel Lobby, there's zero evidence. And if there is, show it to us. But John couldn't find it. I've never seen it. Zero evidence that supporting Israel militarily helps the United States of America, makes us more vulnerable, more of a target in the United States. So what he's saying here is you've got to be out there on social media because people are going to be saying we're losing the war of ideas here. You've got to be pushing this narrative that this is good for America, and you've got to basically attack people who say it's bad for America. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this isn't something they wouldn't have said publicly, but I threw it in there because it's indicative of the anxiety that permeates all Israel lobby activities right now and animates that activity. And it's the fear of the public, fear of public opinion. Israel, he, as this speaker admits, he's not a speaker, this Israel lobbyist admits, has lost the battle of ideas. And academia is where they think the bad ideas about Palestine being colonized originate from. And that's why the Trump administration is waging this all-out censorship war on academia. It's why they're attacking green card holders and permanent residents, trying to remove them from campus and American society. ICE Immigration and Customs Enforcement today just declared that it is aiming to stop illegal ideas from crossing the border, which is completely destroys the concept of the First Amendment. And what the speaker is saying is the reason that these ideas are so threatening is if they start getting into the bloodstream of American culture and in the intelligentsia, and they start becoming mainstream, then they're going to get picked up by AI systems. They already are. And if an AI is going to be like the Oracle in 5 years, it's going to replace Google and all other search engines, and as well as Wikipedia. And if national security advisors to a member of Congress or think tankers start consulting AI for information and research, they're going to get the wrong idea and influence their member of Congress to maybe vote against a military package to Israel or impede arms shipments to Israel, because they'll realize what you just said, Clayton, that American and Israeli interests are not actually aligned.
You know, the Bush era wars in the Middle East were obviously led by Israel interest as well. And we had really good propaganda and we had no independent media to push back against it. How the hell can they sell us on a war with Iran now? The president said just this week, you know, other countries have nuclear weapons that shouldn't, but really it's Iran that shouldn't. And that's where we're focused right now. Why do they get to decide who should and should not have nuclear weapons? France, the UK, North Korea, Israel. How are they going to sell that? How do you think that it's possible to sell that to us? Because the rest of us are like, no, you promised us no wars. In your inauguration speech, you said, I'm going to be known for the wars I don't get into. But here's a war. Take this one, guys. What do you think the narrative could possibly be beyond a false flag?
Bibi asked me, so I'm going to do it.
That was a great question. Where is the salesmanship? Is Trump even making the same case? The Bush administration went out there and put forward all these phony narratives about weapons of mass destruction, Saddam and al-Qaeda being on the same side. They had the shock of the 9/11 attacks, so they had a period of time in which they could act with total public or majority of the public's consent to attack just some random Arab country that had nothing to do with the attacks, which was consistent with the Ladin doctrine. And so they did it, but Trump doesn't have some 9/11 attack, what Paul Wolfowitz weeks before 9/11 called a catastrophic and catalyzing event, which would be necessary in order for the U.S. to dominate the Middle East again. So what's going to happen? I mean, after the tariffs, Trump lacks credibility, including among the capitalist class that helped get him in office. He is seen as untrustworthy by other countries, by the whole world. Will Saudi Arabia and the UAE even trust him to defend their assets if Iran strikes back? So the United States is in a much more weakened position, but you have Israel with it has so much more influence over this government and over the U.S. government as a whole than it even did after 9/11. Remember, Benjamin Netanyahu testified before the Senate that he was sure that Saddam had WMD. Israel was egging the U.S. on to do that attack as well. So it's really a question of whether Trump and his team just decide to unilaterally attack Iran without the consent of the public. The American public is opposed to this. And they're not just opposed to this. They're deeply suspicious about Israel's role in American society and what Israel is. If you look at this new Pew poll that I'm sure you all have covered, most Americans view Israel negatively for the first time. Overwhelmingly, a majority of Democrats, the boomer Democrats, view Israel more negatively by 15% than they did 2 years ago. And Republicans between 18 and 45, the kind of Republicans who watch this show and who are on social media, now view Israel negatively, 50-50. So I don't know how Trump is even going to sell this to the public. He's not going to go to Congress, and there won't be committee debates. It's just going to it would be a disaster for his administration, and it would tank the world economy.
What about Jewish Americans? I saw you posted this. I was laughing because, as someone in the chat says, Redacted hates Jews. Max, I believe you're Jewish, right? And I believe you just got an award, and they labeled you a Jew who shouldn't be allowed into Israel. Max Blumenthal, to which you said, "I have finally arrived." So, how are Jewish Americans? Where do they come down in this polling? By the way, do they want a war? Do they want to support Israel in a war in the Middle East?
Well, and I got to jump off after this, but there was a poll earlier last year in the midst of the Gaza genocide on how Jews felt about that. About 35% of American Jews believed Israel was committing genocide in Gaza. That's a stunning number.
Wow.
It was almost a plurality. If you consider that most Jews still identify as Zionist, and if you look at the polling among Jews who are younger, they're edging closer and closer to my position. I'm a trendsetter. And it's because, there are different kinds of Jews. There are Jews who are raised to believe that never again means never again only for us, and that we should be allowed to commit a Holocaust against anyone who threatens us or this self-proclaimed Jewish state. And there are Jews who believe never again means never again to anyone, and that the lesson of the Holocaust is it should not happen to anyone, including Palestinians. And if it's being committed by us, then we have a special obligation to get in the way and stop it. There's the universalist perspective and the segregationist perspective. And more Jews are taking on in the United States, where we're living through a golden age, where we're much safer and prosperous and freer than in the state of Israel, are taking on the universalist perspective. So that's what I was raised on. That's what I believe in. And I believe we're witnessing the Holocaust of our time in Gaza, and that the reputation of Judaism as a faith community is on the line, and that Zionism aims to destroy that reputation in the eyes of the world in order to justify Israel as a sanctuary where all the Jews will have to run after their lives in Europe or the United States were destroyed by anti-Semitism. So Zionism actually aims to make people more anti-Semitic to justify this Spartan little settler colony that it's established, this nuclearized settler colony in the heart of the Middle East. So I think if Jews want to fight anti-Semitism, they have to first confront Zionism.
Hallelujah.
Yeah. Thank you, Max. It was great to see you, as always.
Yeah, great to see you
come
both.
Back on Redacted. You're doing the good work. So follow Max on X and at the Grayzone and all of their fantastic work.
Yeah, thank you so much, Max. Great to see you.
Thanks for everything you guys are doing, and we'll meet soon.
Yeah.
Thanks, Max. Great work.